Tuesday of the 33rd week in Ordinary Time.
A reading from the book of Revelation. I, John, heard the Lord saying to me, "To the angel of the church in Sardis write this: The one who has the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars says this: I know your works, that you have the reputation of being alive, but you are dead. Be watchful and strengthen what is left, which is going to die, for I have not found your works complete in the sight of my God. Remember then how you accepted and heard. Keep it and repent. If you are not watchful, I will come like a thief, and you will never know at what hour I will come upon you. However, you have a few people in Sardis who have not soiled their garments. They will walk with me dressed in white, because they are worthy. The victor will thus be dressed in white, and I will never erase his name from the book of life, but will acknowledge his name in the presence of my Father and of his angels. Whoever has ears ought to hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To the angel of the church in Laodicea, write this: The Amen, the faithful and true witness, the source of God's creation, says this: I know your works. I know that you are neither cold nor hot. I wish you were either cold or hot. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. For you say, I am rich and affluent and have no need of anything, and yet do not realize that you are wretched, pitiable, poor, blind, and naked. I advise you to buy from me gold refined by fire, so that you may be rich, and white garments to put on, so that your shameful nakedness may not be exposed, and buy ointment to smear on your eyes, so that you may see. Those whom I love, I reprove and chastise. Be earnest, therefore, and repent. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, then I will enter his house and dine with him, and he with me. I will give the victor the right to sit with me on my throne, as I myself first won the victory, and sit with my Father on his throne. Whoever has ears ought to hear what the Spirit says to the churches. The word of the Lord.
Responsorial Psalm. The response is, I will seat the victor beside me on my throne. He who walks blamelessly and does justice, who thinks the truth in his heart, and slanders not with his tongue. I will seat the victor beside me on my throne, who harms not his fellow man, nor takes up a reproach against his neighbor, by whom the reprobate is despised, while he honors those who fear the Lord. I will seat the victor beside me on my throne, who lends not his money at usury, and accepts no bribe against the innocent. He who does these things shall never be disturbed. I will seat the victor beside me on my throne.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. At that time, Jesus came to Jericho and intended to pass through the town. Now, a man there named Zacchaeus, who was a chief tax collector and also a wealthy man, was seeking to see who Jesus was. But he could not see him because of the crowd, for he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed to a sycamore tree in order to see Jesus, who was about to pass that way. When he reached the place, Jesus looked up and said, Zacchaeus, come down quickly, for today I must stay at your house. And he came down quickly and received him with joy. When they saw this, they began to grumble, saying, He has gone to stay at the house of a sinner. But Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, Behold, half of my possessions, Lord, I shall give to the poor, and if I have extorted anything from anyone, I shall repay it 4 times over. And Jesus said to him, Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a descendant of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save what was lost. The Gospel of the Lord.
The first reading comes from the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verses 1 to 6 and 14 to 22. This is two of the letters that occur in the first chapters of the book of Revelation. These letters serve as a type of penitential liturgy, a preparation, because, as some scholars have noticed, the book of Revelation seems to be loosely patterned after the Eucharistic liturgy. These letters would represent the first part of the Mass. The first letter is to the people of Sardis. Now, Sardis was all but an impregnable fortress, and in order to understand the contents of the letter, that they've fallen asleep, that they have to awake, we have to realize that they only fell twice when they were invaded by the enemy, and both times because their guards had fallen asleep while on the night watch. That way the enemy were able to infiltrate into the city without anybody knowing. So he says, awake, reminding them that if they fall asleep again, if they fall into sin, then they will have soiled their garments. One of the main industries in Sardis is to make garments, so he uses images with which they're familiar. He says, to the victor dressed in white, now white is the sign of the resurrection, not of purity, I will never erase his name from the book of life. The book of life is the list of all those who are going to heaven, and everybody's name was written in that book of life before the foundation of the world. We can erase our name by sinning, but why would we want to? This is what it means to be predestined. Predestined doesn't mean we have to go to heaven. It means we're invited. The letter to the church in Laodicea is the last of the 7 letters, and it speaks about being neither cold nor hot. In order to understand the symbolism, we have to realize that the water supply for the city came from a natural spring which came out of the earth warm, and so as it ran through the pipes it was lukewarm. These people are familiar with the effect of lukewarm water. They are lukewarm. Jesus would rather them be hot, on fire with love for the Lord, or cold. If they're going to be sinners, let them be big sinners so they realize they're sinners and maybe convert. Rather, they're blind, they're poor, they're naked. He offers to give them an ointment to smear on their eyes so that they may see. Again, one of the industries of this town was to make an ointment to heal sick eyes. This is the true ointment that will give them true sight. He says he stands at the door and knocks. He wants to be let into our hearts. It's not we who have to knock at his door. He knocks at ours and offers to sup with us. Now, there is a cute joke that a Protestant minister went to visit one of his parishioners, and she didn't answer the door, even though he saw a movement behind the curtain. So he's a little upset by that. So he took his name card, and on it he wrote, Book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 20. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone opens, I'll sup with them. Well, don't you know the name card comes back in the collection basket the next Sunday, and all the lady had written on it was Genesis 3:10. I heard you walking in the garden, but I was naked, so I was afraid. The Gospel is from Luke 19, 1 to 10. And this is the story of Zacchaeus the tax collector. He climbs up a sycamore tree to get a better view of Jesus. This is partly because he's short and partly because he really wants Jesus to be part of his life. That which he's had up to now, his riches from collecting taxes, has really not brought him satisfaction. So when Jesus calls him down, he's willing to surrender all of his misdeeds. He admits that he probably defrauded people, and he'll make recompense. What does Jesus say? Today salvation has come to this house. This is part of what's called a realized eschatology, that the promises for the end of the world are already being realized today. You don't have to wait for the end of the world for it to happen. Already Jesus is bringing this man salvation. This is found in the Gospel of Luke and John. Whereas in Mark and Matthew in the writings of Paul, it's what's called a future eschatology. We wait for the final judgment. And may God bless us.